For over 40 years, the UK's been dining at the same table as the EU. But now the UK is leaving, it's time to work out the bill. Britain's Brexit is going to cost much more than expected, according to the Financial Times. Now, previous calculations put the bill at around about $60 billion, but according to the FT, using new data, the bill is going to be much higher. Well, the bill includes Britain's share of the EU's liabilities. The French and Polish are reportedly pushing for contributions to farm subsidies even after Brexit. EU administration costs are also growing. And the Germans are reportedly against granting the UK a share of EU assets. The EU's top negotiator says he won't even discuss the bloc's future relationship with the UK until the bill is agreed. In fact, he's not even willing to call it a bill.
Some have created the illusion that Brexit would have no material impact on our lives, or that negotiations can be concluded quickly and painlessly. This is not the case.
Well, he may not call it a bill, but it certainly feels like one, and Britain's Brexit secretary says it's far too high.
Well, they've offered 50 billion, 60 billion, 100 billion. We've actually not been given an official number. Whilst we'll meet our international obligations, we'll meet the legal ones, not the best guesses and wishes of the Commission.
Well, Britain says if there is no post-Brexit trade deal with the EU, it will simply tear up the bill and walk away from negotiations. But that is really a nuclear option, one in which everyone loses. Right now, the Conservative government has an eye on next month's general election.
Whoever wins on the 8th of June will face one overriding task: to get the best possible deal for this United Kingdom from Brexit.
Well, this latest EU drama is as much about politics as economics as ever. Matthew Moore, TRT World, London.
So let's go to London now, and joining me from there is Chris Roebuck. He's a visiting Professor of Transformational Leadership at the Cass Business School. Chris, thank you so much for joining us again here on Money Talks.
Thank you.
Headlines like those pointing to this huge Brexit bill. How's it going down in London right now, especially in the run-up to the election on June the 8th?
Well, I think that there are those in the political classes that are getting quite exercised about it. I suppose the average member of the population is looking at this with the simple perspective, look, it's a divorce. And as we all know, in divorces, at the beginning, there's always a bit of an argument about the money and the assets. And that's where we are now. It's a strange situation. The UK is essentially a net contributor to the EU of about 11 billion euro. And the EU financial plans were long-term. Nobody expected UK to be leaving, let alone the EU. So suddenly they find that they've lost roughly 10% of the total EU budget, and they're all scrabbling to try and find out what they can do to recover. Because either it means those that are left have to put in more, or those that are net gainers, such as Poland, will get less.
Indeed. Regardless of the actual bill, whether it's 60 billion, 100 billion, whatever, the big question in the room is whether the UK is going to be able to convince the EU to have these parallel talks. In other words, to have trade talks going on at the same time as these exit negotiations. From your reading of everything so far, are they going to be able to get this?
I think what we have to understand is that this is a sort of a flexible negotiation. And depending how it's going between any week or even any day, what's going to happen is it's like a chess game. People are going to be moving not one or two, but various pieces around the board. So I suspect that the initial positions are now being taken. And this is a leadership issue. You know, Theresa May and the UK, the leaders there, have to act as seen in the best interests of the UK. The EU leaders have to act in a way such that they don't encourage other people to do the same as the UK. So it's all about positioning. And effectively at the moment, the card players are sitting round the table, bluffing each other, and we'll see where we really are when the cards start hitting the table. Because I suspect, in the end, the EU position is not one single position. different countries have different views, and they are going to have to argue about that before they even agree with the UK what the EU officially wants in one position.
Right, quick one before we go, Chris. Theresa May has pegged a lot of her reputation on winning a bigger majority in the June 8th election. Is she going to be able to get it?
I think, you know, we need a strong and stable, I think is the phrase we keep hearing every 30 seconds. But as far as I'm concerned, if, you know, from a member of the public perspective, what choices do you have? You have Theresa May, you have Jeremy Corbyn, or you have a lot of other people, unless you're in Scotland, in which case it's the Scottish nationalists. I suspect that most people are probably going to go with Theresa May.
Indeed. Well, we shall see. Chris Roebuck from the Cass Business School in London.
We will.
Thank you so much.